So on hearing the evacuate signal, please carry out the following. Exit the building by your nearest safest exit. Excuse me. All visitors report to assembly point G. All staff report to their designated assembly point on Woolpack Way car park. Do not leave the assembly point for any reason until told to do so by the incident controller or fire brigade officer. Item number 2 is apologies for absence. Members away on official council business.
We have apologies from councillors Simpson, Ryrie and Watson, and their substitutes are James, Turley and Fowler.
Item number 3 is disclosable pecuniary and non-pecuniary inputs. You're not indicating it.
I just you might want to move your camera.
It's probably a better view.
Further away.
Better. Oh God.
You don't want it to be too fast, do you? Yeah. Well, I use the phone.
Item number 4 is public participation. Item number 5 is the minutes of the meeting of the board held on the 17th of March of this year. Copies herewith approved. Approved by Councillor Ridley, seconded by Councillor Riley. All those in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. Item number 6 is the safeguarding update. This report is part of the regular updates received by members of the Council of Safeguarding Responsibilities and Actions. The report sets out the recent changes in this area, as well as the activity that has been undertaken in the recent period, with a particular focus on the issue of suicide. It recommends that the revised policy and procedures to 2028 be adopted, and also confirms that further training will be offered to members. Any?
Have we got a date for the further training?
3 shall can get one. Because it'll be me doing it. So
Thank you.
Cool.
I was a bit confused because there was mention of an external provider, and I think it was Becky that did it last time, so I was a bit confused about them.
You do it on consultancy.
That would be a good learner. Can I do that? I'll continue to do member training, but we have an external consultant come in and do all of the officer training just for capacity issues.
Okay. And actually, I did have one other question, which was, do the public facing staff have any sort of training around awareness of suicide and that sort of thing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart. What do you say?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for the report. Really, really good. I like the expansion into the suicide issue as well. One thing reading this that I was wondering about is that I've got a concern around when we're talking about exploitation, particularly that's been taking place online, because we're very much focused on a local kind of issue, but there's both direct and indirect ability for online exploitation, both direct in terms of phishing. I don't know, but I've had an awful lot of residents coming forward who've very nearly or very actually have fallen foul of phishing, exactly phishing with a PH as opposed to an F. And I think with our housing stock and having our own, is that we've got an awful lot of people who've got a certain responsibility towards. I'm just wondering how we can possibly share awareness of issues to make sure that they are less at risk. I'm also really, really pleased to see that Prevent was part of the report, because I don't know if anyone else has been on social media over the course of the last week where Prevent training has been completely misappropriated for purposes to detail around to suggest that the government is now classifying anyone with certain views as being a terrorist, which is quite clearly not the case. I think it's really, really important that, that people are protected from various voices that can lead them in both directly and indirectly, because a lot of these cases now are leading to people suggesting around crowdfunding of legal cases. We have situations where the legal profession is governed by regulatory processes, the financial profession is regulated,
Excuse me.
and people have the right to spend their money as they wish, but I think if they're being misled online to hand over money to people where, in good faith, to propose actions that are leading towards, not beneficial outcomes. Yeah, I think that people are at risk of online fraud in a number of different forms. And I think that in the absence of any legislation there, I'm just wondering whether further iterations of Fed policy need to make an awareness of potential online concerns of both direct and indirect financial exploitation of residents.
Okay, I mean, before I pass over to Becky, I mean, what I would say on the phishing stuff, yeah, I mean, I mean, that's national, isn't it? And it's not unique to North Warwickshire. I don't know whether we can do anything specific.
The rest of the safeguarding policy is not unique to North Warwickshire.
No, but that's the key thing, isn't it? I mean, secondly, I mean, it's open to interpretation what you said about the prevent and the online. I mean, you know, I agree. You're not being accused of being a terrorist specifically. I think you are being accused, if you don't agree with the government right at this moment in time, you are being accused of far right. You've been, you know, you're far right. So I think it's wrong. A lot of that stuff that they're bringing out, I have to say. Becky, on the phishing, is there anything, or Steve?
You go first.
You sure?
Yeah.
So detail, I'd suggest it's probably wider than a vulnerable adult and kind of young person issue, and it might be something we can pick up within the community safety side of things, as well as kind of noting that these guys are more vulnerable, but it's probably wider than a safeguarding issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that part of the training is to pick up on people who are presenting symptoms of being financially exploited and that sort of stuff. But we do a lot of comms around cyber security, you know, working with council colleagues or around that sort of stuff, mainly through certainly that sort of stuff. But it's something that the housing, for example, see what they think these days into the housing for tenants.
Okay. Councillor Ridley.
Thank you, Chair. I think the phishing thing is almost an extension to a certain extent of online grooming. I'll take it that's the sort of thing you mean.
The indirect stuff, yeah. I think you've got the direct and indirect, but
And I think that's a challenge for our community these days, in that there's so much more access for individuals online, whether it be vulnerable individuals, young people. Again, the prevent nature of things. I've experienced people where they've been groomed online for terrorist sort of like doctrines, basically, and that again, sexual grooming, terrorist grooming. It is a societal problem, I think. So this is probably an extension of it, but again, it's being trying to police it through awareness from teachers, parents, you know, peers, trying to encourage people to talk about it, to access it, and to put those safeguards in place on the actual system itself. I think that's the way it's going.
Thank you. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you. I was just going to comment on that and just say, in relation to what this policy is really kind of aimed at, in terms of our interactions as a kind of group, and a group of officers, and we're interacting with the public, it's those that are coming forward to us. So if someone came to us with significant debt issues, and you know that it transpired that was the root cause and things like that, then yeah, I think community engagement around certain issues is really key. I think this is about targeting our resource and our support to particular groups through things that we encounter, isn't it? How we handle those. So people come to us through many routes with lots of different difficulties, don't they? But I suppose there's an element that could be included in financial inclusion through that group, maybe. Yeah.
Okay, councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Chair. Quite a while ago, I recall, when I went to a meeting in Coleshill around publicans, etc. There was a gentleman, forgive me, I forget his name now. A gentleman that came along and he was talking about modern slavery, but it also included cuckooing and various other things, like when you're in the pub, is answering, etc., etc. And I believe, as I requested, there was going to be some training. So Becky, do you know whether that is coming ahead at all or going ahead?
I'm training on what, sorry?
On modern slavery, but there was a booklet that I handed, I think it might have been to Sharon or somebody, and we were talking about doing some training, and that was one that we thought would be pretty good to put forward. And I know that Councillor Hobley also supported particular training as well.
Through you, Chair, I know we've done modern slavery for officers, so I can chase around the members. I've certainly got some leaflets around modern slavery that I can put in your group rooms if that would be.
I've got the pile of them, and his card, but I know I did suggest that we touch base with him, and get some training. He's quite happy to come along with paying members.
Chair, I'm happy to pick that up.
And I'll email it to you soon.
Yeah.
Do around whatever. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. I don't see anybody else indicating, so I'll move the recommendation from the chair, seconded by councillor Stewart. Thank you. All those in favour? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Item number 7 is the update and the grants. So this report gives an update on the various grants administered by the council to support local organisations, groups and individuals. So in particular, the report provides members with the final outcomes of the UKSBF Fund and Rural England Prosperity Fund, through which almost £2.5 million was awarded to local community groups, businesses and training providers in North Warwickshire. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank those members who served on the UKSBF panel, which considered the allocations, to those partners that assisted us via the advisory group, and in particular to Becky Evans, who ran the programme with great effectiveness for the last few years. The report also details the outturn for the first year of the shopfront improvement grants, with £105,000 being awarded to 56 projects so far in a wide range of locations across the borough. We also funded the 47 VE Day celebration events and supported 295 projects with over £400,000 by the councillor's local government, local community fund. And finally, the council has also worked in partnership with community groups to obtain external grant funding. There have been 3 notable successes recently. Haunchwood Junior Sports Football Club securing £250,000 following the council's decision to grant them a 25-year lease. And this has been supplemented by a further £189,000 to the club from the Social Fabric Fund. And Atherstone Rangers have also benefited from that fund, with our help receiving £101,000 towards the refurbishment of the Manchester Pavilion. All good news. I think all members will agree. We set those funds up, the councillors' community fund, etc. First year was in 2020. Very timely, and as the report says, hundreds of thousands of pounds being awarded. Councillor Clues.
Thank you, Chair. Just also to say that Exeter Church also benefited from the Social Fabric Fund, and I believe this week they're fitting a new kitchen, which they have community groups down there, and the friendship lunches and everything, and set it up with a bit of English, especially as we're the most poor community in Warwickshire. So yes, it was really good. So I thank everybody that's involved in that. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a note and say, I know local businesses in my area, particularly the shop, are really grateful for the shop window improvement scheme. It looks fantastic and they're really pleased. They've been trying to save the money to do it up for many years, and we're really grateful to get the grant. And I also wanted to say a big thank you for those involved with sorting out the VE Day money, because there was lots and lots of events that went on, and I've heard lots of positive stories about the day. So I didn't get invited to them all, but I've heard lots of stories.
No, thank you for that, Councillor Jackson. I mean, yeah, as I said before, and it's said in the report, literally hundreds of groups have been, albeit, sometimes a fairly modest amount of money, but, lots and lots of groups have benefited from, the grants that we've brought about. So I will, unless there's any other comments. Sorry, Councillor. Yeah.
Couple of questions, more about the forward-facing bits of it, really. So, on the Rural England Prosperity Fund, no, we don't know how much of the county's fund is going to be spent in North Warwickshire, but do we have any idea how much the county have got overall? Because that's, I don't think, mentioned in the report, unless I missed it. And then also, in terms of the county administered UKSPF and REPF, are we going to be monitoring anything around what they're approving into North Warwickshire to make sure that it actually benefits this area? And are there any avenues to challenge that if we don't believe that it would?
Yeah, they're seriously good questions, Councillor Barnett, to be fair. Yeah, I mean, we put forward our ideas, I think it's fair to say, on how the county should, once we found out, obviously, the county were receiving it and not us. We put forward our proposals, which the county ignored, and well, bluntly, the county decided that they would keep the vast majority of the money. They would give us a small, was it 50,000?
Yeah, something around
roughly, out of the. I think they got around about £1.5 million. So yes, they're keeping the bulk of it. They will decide, obviously, therefore, how it will be spent across the county. And yeah, we will do our very best to make sure that a good proportion of that is spent in the right place, i.e. North Warwickshire. And obviously then make sure it's been effective. Whether that happens, Councillor Barnett, is down to the county, but we will do our best. It was mightily frustrating that they just chose to ignore the, it wasn't just North Warwickshire, the districts and boroughs, we just ignored it. They're keeping the whole lot. Well, apart from the odd little scraps. And all we can do is keep an eye, ask questions, and hope, I guess, is the blunt answer. I've got Councillor Bell.
Yeah, can we, I was looking at Stephen Beck here. Can we formally ask for quarterly updates on how you spent the money, so we can see where the money's going, even if it's not going to us, so that we can keep an eye? It's a good suggestion, Councillor Barnett.
Councillor Watson.
Yeah, hi. Right, okay, so my question, Chair, is it's great to see we've been spending all this money. There's lots of projects that we spend it on, and this is absolutely fantastic. It's really good causes. What is the due diligence to make sure that the money, if somebody comes to us and we've got a skate park, 50,000, what is the process to make sure that skate park appeared, it happened, and that we're not just, the people aren't going around and using us to raise revenue or money, what makes sure that these projects, whether it's goalposts or whatever it is, actually happens? Who's in charge of that? Because this is great, we've allocated it, but are these getting signed off? Do we have an assigned officer to actually qualify that these are actually happening and spending our money correctly?
Yeah, good question. I mean, so the vast majority of the funding that we've awarded is from the UK SPF, the UK Share Prosperity Fund. And as far as that was concerned, on all the grants, so organisations submitted bids for money. They were awarded an amount of money that we needed to. There was a whole lot of due diligence done to make sure that money was spent where they said it was going to be spent. And, you know, in some cases we said, if we couldn't physically see well, where's the receipts? We want the invoices, etc., etc. I know I raised it with Becky about a couple of organisations that I had my suspicions about, to absolutely make sure that money was being spent where it was meant to be spent. On the councillor, the community grants, that was a little bit more flexible, should we say, but we were talking about relatively modest amounts of money. So again, the vast majority, though, an organisation would, or a community group would approach, one of the members and say, can we have a bit of your community fund? And because you know your area and you knew it was going to the right places, and then you could see the sort of physical evidence in most cases, what that money had been spent on. Well, that was certainly the case for the grants that I awarded out of my community fund. Does that answer your question?
So who is responsible for making sure that this money is spent correctly? Who is the council?
Ultimately,
Who are the officers that are responsible for this?
Ultimately, Becky.
Okay, thank you.
No finger pointing. Becky.
Joy expand it a little bit.
Yeah.
So through you, Ted. So the high street improvement grants, they have to submit a before photo and then they do an after photo. So it's very much this is what you're spending on. They have to submit quotes. UKSPF, so some of the bigger projects were our project. So I can tell you definitely that the skate park was built and the goalposts have been put in. And again, they had to do case study, photos, and keep receipts for when we asked them. They also had to complete a record of completion form that gave all the outputs and outcomes for the projects that they've done. So we go back to government with this is how our money's been spent. So, and VE grants, they all had to submit photos, nice quotes, all fluffy stuff. So yeah, does that help?
Yeah, thanks. It'd be wrong of me not to ask that we're not doing the right thing and making sure the money is being correctly spent. It's fine handing it over, but let's just make sure that the result is the result that they applied for.
Absolutely. We, I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's a grant or whether it's core funding. Because while we're in administration, we ensure that any monies going out to council are spent efficiently and effectively. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, and just from a councillor point of view, so if you're working with local community groups, for example, one of mine was a local ladies football team. They'd been given a spare kit by the men's team. We funded their own kit. You can see those sorts of things. You engaged with them, so it's more direct engagement. One of the most recent things I've put money in for is a defibrillator, so you'll be able to physically see it. You can match those sorts of things. It's if you're giving money to organisations, I think one of the things we tend not to do is just give money to organisations. It's usually for something. The event's already planned or organised, so you might fund, for argument's sake, a VE day, you might have funded the toilets to the event. You sort of fund a thing, and that sort of safeguards you a little bit as a councillor when you're committing to something. So someone might approach you and say, would you support this? And say, well, what are you looking for? What's your event? What do you need? And it's that conversation you kind of enter into before you say yes or email Becky and say, this is what I'd like to support. This is the kind of amount I'd like to support it to. This is their contact. This is their address. This is their treasury. It makes sure it's a constituted group and all that sort of thing. So those things are belt and braces really through your communication with Becky and her team.
Are you indicating to speak, Councillor Stewart, or are you
But
just,
I've- but
are you just,
Good- good
I don't know
councillor
whether you're
Jackson
just waving your
before
lolly stick at me?
Yeah.
Well, Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Jen. I was just going to say I take great pride in visiting all the local groups that I've got involved with. I even got to sit on a motorbike at the Ladies WI group and the blood bikes, but it's lovely to actually go along and then, you know, once they've got given their grant to get what they are hoping to use the grant for, go along and see what they've done with it, and it's amazing to see, and it makes you really proud. You know, when our local allotments wanted some money, they'd just taken over a new chair and treasurer, and they wanted a lawnmower and a leaf blower and things like that. So they purchased that, and I went along and had a play. But then they planted some lovely trees. And they put a plaque up for my son. You know, them sort of things is just lovely to see when, you know, all these groups are actually coming together and we can help. And I'll take great pride in going along and taking a photo of what they're doing and seeing the progress. And I think it's a lovely thing that we've got to be able to give to groups in our communities.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart.
One unexpected benefit from the VE Day funding was, and I'd like to congratulate whose idea that was, because one of the things that came out from that was just how accessible it was. And I think that what it has done is that by sitting down and working with some local groups to support them in that funding, it's made the whole grant funding and bidding process a lot less scary, because it says, well, actually, this is a result that you can get very quickly and quite simply. And I think it's actually empowered a number of local organisations to go and find other sources of funding for projects that they want to do, and actually give them that kind of idea as well about what kind of receipts you need to keep, what kind of things you have to do to follow up to prove, and the governance around it. So I think that actually the overall benefits of that fund could actually be manifest going forward for quite some time in the way that it'll support organisations. So I'd just like to pass on my thanks and congratulations around that.
Thank you for that, Councillor Chair. Yeah, I mean, that was the second time we used that system, wasn't it? Because we used it for the Platinum Jubilee as well. Yeah, no, it did work well. Councillor Clues.
Thanks, Chair. It's worked really well. I'm quite proud of the councillors that's been involved, because of I think the last 4 events we've done it through the 3 wards in Atherstone South, Atherstone North and South, and Manchester and Ridge Lane. And I know there's invites coming out, and Councillor Watson's joined us on the last 2 funding ones for us to go and meet the hockey players, the senior hockey players that are now just all been trained as umpires. And there's also the fund the 150 years of the GFS going. So they've got a day where they're going to be presenting all old photos, and I believe they've bought the girls' badges to celebrate 150 years. The Girl Guides, we bought them new equipment for when they go away on camp, and bags because they're going to one of these big jamborees. And then the last one I believe we've done, we've just given some money to the community fridge. And I met the chappie yesterday, and again he said, thank you very much. Anybody that wants to come down and see how we work, please ask them to do so. So it has really worked, the last ones we've done.
Thank you.
And thank you to Becky for it's a bit longer.
Okay, I should have said to Councillor Stewart, I'll receive your thanks because it was not our group's idea. So thank you for your thanks. Anybody else? No. Okay, so I'll move the recommendation from the chair, seconded by Councillor Riley. All those in favour? Very much. Item number 8 is the Corporate Peer Challenge. So members will recall the Corporate Peer Challenge that took place last year, which produced an overall very positive report on how the council works and delivers services on the priority issues facing our residents. There is a requirement to produce an action plan to pick up the improvement suggestions made by the team, but the recommendations in the action plan, together with the progress to date against those actions, are set out on the appendix to the report. Any questions? Councillor Simmons.
Thank you. Overall, it's you know, it's a relatively okay action plan, but one of the things it sort of lacks is some clarity on timeframes and ownership. So with any action plan, it's some of the key elements to that are not just the recommendations that have been made, but actually how we're going to tackle it and who's going to do each bit and by when. And that's what's lacking in this action plan at the moment. So is there a way of, it's also a little bit wordy and not sort of a clear, concise plan. So you can sort of document, each recommendation, but then actually so you can track it. And with any decent action plan, you want to be able to track your progress and feedback on that, and then tweak based on any further changes that may be required. So I think it's okay, but it probably is it needs a bit more work.
Yeah, happy to say those on board. I mean, what we try to do is meet this in a proportionate way in terms of the value that we got out of the peer review, which I know obviously we've discussed before, but yeah, certainly I think timeframes and ownerships are a good point. And it may be through that timeframes that we can provide a summary to get you out of some of the words. Obviously this has got an LGA audience, which is where some of the sort of phrases and words are coming, but yeah, that timeframe document could provide a summary as well. So yeah, that's points well made.
And just so then, thank you for that. And then just follow on from that, particularly on the governance elements, because obviously we need to focus on that as a key area. And I know we've strengthened internal audit, which obviously comes through my board over the last 12 months. And we need to see some of those things being followed up on, and cultural change and how it's sort of member and officer partnership on that, about actually getting the information to the internal auditors and actually having some impetus behind that so that things don't get left or miss target timeframes for that internal audit for some of those sections. So the governance elements are the ones I'm particularly, surprised nobody in the room, I'm focused on. But I think that overall that's something we need to particularly target and make sure culturally it's not just seen as something that's we've done that, it's in there, we've published it, and actually that it becomes a bit more living and breathing, and we can actually push forward on governance with the recommendations.
Sure, yeah, I think, yeah, we're fine. We will bring some more stuff on audits to the July resources board supervision, if you're aware, which will pick up some of that, and also that reporting back in terms of what the rhythm is in terms of audit report, action plan, checking against the actions. Just occurs to me that one of the things we talked about was whether or not audit should have been big debate, wasn't there, during the visit, that everybody was confused about where audit goes. And obviously the government got out a consultation on that, which is why we're hanging back. But I think on the risk and the governance, there's no particular reason why we can't need to hold back. So I think once we've got a draft of the new constitution, we can look at the terms of reference and strengthen that bit for resources board around being primarily focused on risk and governance. And then that could be a conversation with the resources board about what you want to see then as part of that term of reference. So while we'll hang back perhaps on the audit bit, because the mention is introducing the need for a separate audit committee, that the resource, the governance and risk bit can go ahead. So yeah, we'll look at that.
Good.
Councillor Bell.
Thanks. Yeah. So on the risk, as part of the leisure project, we've got a very comprehensive risk register, and I think, and obviously that should be part, or at least referenced by, the corporate risk register. And I'm not at the moment. I'm not sure. It might have happened. I'm not sure whether those two things have been linked together yet. But obviously, it's a major project for the whole organisation. And whilst it's expected to be repeated in the corporate risk register, it should be at least reference.
So again, Chair, so there's been a number of workshops and work gone on about corporate governance as part of that, risk, as part of that renewal of what our risks are. And so that's one of the things that you'll get into resources in July around a draft of those. And sure enough, leisure is there in at least one of it, sort of probably cross-referencing into certain others. So yeah, so that work is ongoing, hasn't serviced yet, but in a few weeks you'll get it published within July resources.
Thank you. Councillor Barney.
Well, I wanted to echo everything that Councillor Simmons said first, because also going to make some of those points. I think particularly around the internal audits, it's disappointing to see so many timescales just constantly shifting back. I know we've got resource constraints, but it'd be helpful if we can have a bit more focus in some of those areas. The other things I was going to pick up on, oh, I forgot which one it was now. Recommendation 8, which is around providing the better supports members. And about everyone else, but I find these iPads incredibly difficult to use. It's difficult to look at stuff in a meeting. I don't know whether it's a training issue, but whether we need more training or whether there's any opportunity to review that. I don't know, again, financial costs are going to be limited in terms of what we can do. Anything we can do to help us get better use out of the technology we've got, that would certainly be appreciated, because I find it a real struggle. And then the last one was just something I've already mentioned to Steve, but there's, in terms of this plan, there is an embedded spreadsheet which just appears as an image in here, and a couple of links that link to our internal OneDrive, which I couldn't access. This is a public document and it's a public plan which is on our agenda, and ideally anything that's in there should be publicly accessible.
Can I pick those 2 points up? So the last one, yes, there's a point well made. We're sort of slightly updated those links in terms of rather than giving you hard copies of all and padding the stuff out. But I think it's an issue of what bit of kit you access it on. But yeah, we thought we'd sorted on this one. We didn't quite on 2 or 3 of the links, but we'll make sure we do that better in the future. In terms of training, I'm meeting with colleagues shortly to draw up some training. I mean, one of the things we suggested for all that is a questionnaire to members around what sort of training. And I think IT probably is up there, because we've had a number of conversations before about what can you access on your phone, what can you do on your iPad, and those sorts of things, conjoined calendars and all those sorts of things. There are solutions for them all, and I think probably we'll see how far through the training we get before we then say, right, fair enough, we've hit a button, you need a different piece of kit. But
I feel comfortable to do kind of a hybrid thing where anything that's publicly accessible I do on my laptop, and then all the stuff I do on here.
Yeah. No, it's fair. That's a good point.
Councillor Simmons.
Yeah, just to come back on that bit really. We use Teams for meetings, so you can use Teams really well for file sharing, looking down particular groups who can or cannot access shared folders, and having things embedded links that would actually work through that. You could use it on the iPad if you used it through the right mechanism. We hop and change between different parts of the. So if we said we're going to use Teams, used it for sharing files, and used it properly, then we could have all those embedded links, and they should work. At the moment, very little works on there, and you end up printing stuff, which is never ideal. Yeah, that it could be so much better as a way of sharing information and seeing having lockdown documents or even shared documents that you're working on jointly through that mechanism as well. It could be a good, or we've got using shared files.
I think most of them, but yeah, there's 1 or 2, particularly the spreadsheets that need to be done. And the head of IT returns from holiday on Monday. She'll be very pleased to hear about Teams, because she's always pushing us into Teams. Stand by, you'll find your next one in the performance report on Teams.
You could have it. So if you've got meeting documents for this board meeting, you could have each agenda item, so you're not scrolling, because you've got each agenda item. Sometimes you've got a huge pack of information as well, and then sort of some action points that come out of an action plans, and whether or not they're red, amber, green at the front, so you can deal with some meeting agenda items in a more clear, concise way. Would be so much more useful.
Mention this in planning as well.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, so I'll move that from the chair, seconded by councillors.
With the amendments, obviously. With the
Yeah.
Yes, we'll reflect that.
With the amendment, yeah. Councillor Simmons, all those in favour? Unanimous. Item number 9 is the Caldicot Community Governance Review. So the report lets members know of a petition that's been received in support of the creation of a parish council for the Caldicot area. As a result, the council is required to undertake a community governance review, and the draft terms of reference are set out in the appendices to the report. Congratulations to Caldicot, I'd say. Yes. I mean, it's obviously a very small community, and fair play, you know, they've got the announced and they've got the support to create a parish council. I think it's all good. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, just ask what's the timescale? I'm not sure about the process. I mean, if it was to go ahead, how long would it be before it happens?
So we'll hope to get out as soon as possible following this meeting. We'll run that through to the beginning of September. And then it depends on how many responses we get. If we get a lot of responses, it might take us to the November exec board in order to bring that back. But if not, we'll bring it to September's exec board. So following this meeting, we'll probably next week launch the website and start the digital side of it in terms of emailing people out. We're in the process of confirming booking dates for Caldicot Parish Hall and Hartsell Parish Hall, which will give both the petition organisers and Hartsell Parish Council time to submit anything they wish to be displayed in terms of their arguments for and against.
So what's the earliest time that this parish council could be formed? If all goes in that direction?
So I think there would be some options. And I think the decision then would be in September and November in order to decide yes or no. And then we bring back the order in February. So I'm not sure quite when that would form. I'll come back to you.
Final informations, if necessary, February.
Yeah, so that'll be the order. When that order takes effect, I don't know.
I assume it's got to be an election.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Well, assuming there's more than I don't know.
No, I'll too. We've focused on this end of the process, but I'll let you know.
So, there isn't any question of waiting until there's a borough election before anything's done. Is that an option, or does it just naturally follow on when the time follows on?
For you, Chair, I wouldn't have thought so. Not given the doubt whether there'll be borough election in 2027 for what's for our subsequent items on the agenda. But yeah, well, I'll confirm that.
Does it still require an act of parliament to create a parish council?
I don't believe so. I think
It used to, didn't it?
yeah, that's been on the check. That sense, the same. We're looking mostly at in the hope that we'll have a new elections manager by then who can take care of that side of it.
Councillor Watson.
Thanks. Just a quick question, really, Chair. On appendix 2, the letter dated 3rd of February 2025, it states that recognising that there's previously been an effective council for the parish and motivation for establishing, the letter continues. So it sounds like there was previously a parish council that was then disbanded for some reason. If that letter's true, I mean, that's how I'm reading it. It says there has previously been an effective council for this parish. Now, has there been a previous parish, and is there a reason why it was disbanded previously, I guess?
Way before my time. I don't remember.
It was the letters from Democratic Services, 3rd of February. Somebody's found that.
Oh yeah, I know the letter, but I'll see the letter. But I don't know whether that's. I'm assuming whoever wrote the letter, that would be factually correct, but I don't know. Councillor Ridley.
I think it was way back when, I seem to recall, because obviously Caldicot in its essence was part of it, and I think there was new realignments when they realigned some of the things. So whether it became rural and unsustainable because there wasn't enough people to do it, I don't know. But I think it's great for Caldicot. Obviously, we passed last night at planning development. We passed the Myra application, which is great. And I think, Margaret, is this the case that the Myra placement will be within this parish?
Yes.
So that'd be good that they'll have a big employment site as well within their parish to be able to sort of tap into, to be able to work with. But I think certainly working with that along the consultation process has obviously galvanised the community, and I think it can only be for the benefit of the community going forward. So it's really good news.
No, I think I totally agree, councillor Ridley. Yeah, absolutely. Any, no, I'll move from the chair then, seconded by councillor Bell. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Item number 10 is the appointment to working groups. So following the appointments made at full council last month, there were 2 groups to be appointed by this board as set out in the report. So we're asked to confirm the nominations for those groups. I can confirm to the Shopfronts panel, the Conservative nominations are myself, councillor Jarvis, councillor Jens, councillor Simmons and councillor Bell. And to the HS2 consultative group, the Conservative nominations are councillor Watson, councillor Fowler, councillor Simmons, councillor Riley, councillor Simpson. You have.
Shall I take that then? So I think we're proposing for the shopfront one, it'll be myself, councillor Farrow and councillor Hayden Phillips. And for the HS2 committee, it is councillor Hayden Phillips, councillor Dervix and councillor Chapman.
Thank you.
On behalf of the North Warwickshire Independent representatives, I am the representative on both, but my memberships of some other committees might change.
Thank you. Councillor Ridley.
Thank you. It's going to be myself for the Shopfront Improvement Working Group.
And for reform, it's councillor Gilmore for HS2.
Thank you very much. Okay,
Thank you very much. Don't always get all those nominations.
There we go.
So thank you very much.
efficiently and effective.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Item number 11 is the metal detecting policy. This is
You're doing a bit of thought of fame.
So as it said, the council from time to time receives requests to undertake metal detecting activities on lands that we own, and a policy for responding to such requests is recommended to the board. Any comments? Councillor Ridley.
I think I see the detectorist. It's my favourite programme. It's just lovely.
A lot of finding and we'll use the people.
Councillor Fowler.
Just curious to know, Chairman, if I actually was using one, and I actually found a good bag of coins under the ground. Who keeps them?
The Queen.
I thought you were going to say that.
It's in the box.
You know, I know from time to time, do we know of any sort of the numbers involved, requests that we have?
Get at least 2 or 3 a year for wanting to go on our green spaces and
Oh, right, okay.
try and find a gold ring and
Fair enough.
stuff.
Is it at the ask?
Okay.
Quite persistent.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll move it from the chair. Seconded by councillor Phillips. Thank you. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Item number 12 is the minutes of the Safer Community Subcommittee held on the 25th of March. There's anybody got any comments? So I'll move those from the chair, seconded by councillor Bell. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Item number 13 is the exclusion of the public and press. There aren't any, but I think I need to read it for the minutes, don't I?
You could move it as printed.
I shall move it as printed. Thank you. Seconded by councillor Simmons. All those in favour? Thank you. Item number 14 is